Good morning. Today is the 2nd, March 2nd. Wherefore the children of Israel shall keep the Sabbath for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the 7th day he rested and was refreshed. Exodus 31:16 through 17. Keeping the Sabbath day holy is an outward manifestation of an inner commitment to follow the Lord. The Sabbath was established to commemorate God's day of rest after the creation and Israel's redemption from Egyptian captivity. The Lord said to Moses, "Verily my Sabbaths ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doth sanctify you." The Sabbath is a constant reminder, a perpetual covenant, an eternal principle that existed from the days of Adam. It is a day to separate ourselves more fully from the world, a day to be spiritually strengthened, a day to gather with the saints in worship, a day to serve others and do our duty to God, a day to rest and receive heavenly help for a week ahead. Perhaps now more than ever we need the spiritual sustenance that comes from sincere observance of the Sabbath. Okay, so today is Genesis 30. And in this, Rachel wants children. She says to Jacob, "Give me children or else I die." And he gets mad at her and says, "Am I God? Am I the one who's doing this to you? Calm down, woman." And so anyway, she gives him her handmaid, Bilhah, and she bears 2 sons. I think it's Dan and Asher. Or else I die. Dan and Naphtali. Yeah. And then Leah was like, "Hey, I'll give you my handmaiden Zilpah." So Zilpah bears a couple of children, and then Reuben, the oldest, he goes out in the field and he finds some mandrakes, and he brings them home, and Rachel sees them, and they're kind of thought as like not an aphrodisiac, but as like helping to conceive children. And Rachel goes, "Give me your son's mandrakes." And Leah goes, "Oh, so first you're going to take my husband and now you're going to take my mandrakes?" And Rachel goes, "Okay, how about this? You give me the mandrakes and Jacob can stay with you tonight, okay? He'll stay with you." So anyways, Jacob stays with her. She bears 2 more kids, or 3. 6 sons and a girl, Dinah. Not Dinah, Dinah. And then God remembers Rachel, and she bears Jacob. And once Jacob is born, once Joseph is born, Jacob says to Laban, "Okay, let me go home. I've been here forever. Let me go home." And Laban goes, "Okay, well, what do you want? What should I give you?" And he goes, "Don't give me anything. Okay, how about this? We separate your flocks, the single from the spotted, and then whatever the single colored bear, if they're spotted, they come to me, and if they're colored, they go to you. How about that?" And Laban agrees. The spotted go 3 days' journey away, and then it's just a solid color left. And when Jacob is watering them, he puts speckled and striped sticks in the water so that they would conceive speckled and striped kids. And it worked. And but if the animal seemed feeble, he wouldn't put the sticks in the water. So obviously God was just blessing him, and so he increased. And that's where we leave off, is that Jacob has increased in his flocks because of his little stick trick. Each book skips over to chapter 34. So, not quite sure what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the week because we've got 31 and 32 and 33. And both books skip right over to 34. But in my Our Sisters in the Bible, the opening line is just hilarious. No man binds himself for 7 years, and then, when he finds he has been cheated, labors another 7 years, unless he's madly in love. The fact that Rachel hardly deserved such devotion is only one of the many ironies in the strange mix of the heavenly and the earthly, the spiritual and the sensual, woven through the history of Jacob and his wives. It's so funny. You know, all we really talk about Rachel is how much Jacob loved her. We hardly ever talk about if she deserved it. You know, at the beginning of the chapter, she's whining like a baby. Give me children or else I die. You know, I'm sure it's not easy to have this man just love you so much, and then, you know, you think you're going to marry him, and your father swindles both of you. He sends your sister in, and then she keeps bearing him children. And like I said yesterday, you know, Jacob has to be a willing partner in all of this, you know. He has to be there with Leah conceiving these children, and, you know, she sees that they're doing something right and her and Jacob aren't, or, you know, and that's where the mandrakes come in. Yep, we got that. Okay. Rachel's reaction to the deception of Leah being given instead of her is not recorded. The victim of her father's selfishness, he not wanting an unmarried daughter to support. She was shunted aside, losing the position of Jacob's first birthright wife. Never would she be the undivided head of her husband's household, but she would be obliged to share with her older sister. Which couldn't be easy. In the Unshaken podcast, he talks about pride from above and pride from below, which Rachel has both views of. Pride from above, oh, Jacob loves me, he served 14 years for me. And then pride from below, where it's like, Rachel is giving him these children, not Rachel, Leah is giving him these children, and I'm not. I want these mandrakes. I want a child. You know, Bila, bear me children, that sort of thing. She must have been desperate if she gave her, you know, it's like her husband's affection is already divided 2 ways, and then she's like, go to my handmaid, and now it's divided a 3rd way, and then Leah gives Zilpah, and it's divided a 4th way. None of this could have been easy on Jacob. You know, you think, oh, men just love it. You know, polygamy is so awesome. Men just have a party all the time. 4 women whining in your ears constantly? I don't think so. All right. Okay. Fuming little Jacob accepted the situation. He must have recognized the irony. Leah, led by her father's deceit, had stolen her sister's blessing, as Jacob, led by his mother, had stolen his brother's. And his wrath may have been mitigated by the fact that his veiled bride did not stand in the way of his heart's desire. It was Leah who gambled the most. She loved Jacob. There is no indication that Rachel loved him more or even as much. Yet Leah must have known that the day after her wedding, the greatest of all humiliations might await her. Jacob might loathe her. Yet she took the risk to have him for one night, hoping to prove herself the woman for him. She lay in the darkness, embracing him. The morning of her humiliation dawned, and Jacob struck a new bargain. Leah's father snatched one concession. She was to have a week's unrivaled attention from her husband. But the love that couldn't be won in a night could not be won in a week, and 7 days later a second wedding was celebrated. The scriptures state, unequivocally that Jacob loved Rachel more. That is a heartbreaking scene. I can't even imagine what that morning must have been like. Why would you? No. Yeah. The sons. Yeah. Okay. Okay, so now we're talking about. Sorry, I know. Okay, so now we're talking about the mandrakes. And Leah was entitled to believe that Jacob was her husband and that Rachel had somehow supplanted her. She was, after all, the first wife. She had given Jacob 4 sons of her own and 2 by her maid. By law and tradition, she had fulfilled all that could be required of a good wife, and yet she was unloved. With justifiable rancor, she accepted Rachel's offer, then went into the field and met Jacob and tell him that she had won him for the night. The mandrakes didn't work. It was Leah who conceived her. She named her 5th son Issachar, and then finally a daughter. Only then did God remember Rachel. She had a son. Yep. The image, or she's his first wife. She's bared him children, and yet Rachel is calling the shots. Okay, fine. He can stay with you tonight. Like she runs the place. So that must have been a little not humiliating, but a little pride from above from Rachel and a little pride from below from Leah. Okay. So according to the law, Laban could still claim Jacob's children and wives. Their escape, if they were to make it, must be carefully planned and orchestrated. During the years in which his sons were arriving, Jacob had been cheating Laban, and Laban, in turn, had been defrauding Jacob. As long as the two of them maintained a shrewd balance, the home life, while not elevated in moral tone, remained amiable. Jacob seemed to have been contented counting sheep and cattle rather than remembering his vision of the angels and the promise of his birthright. Then 2 things happened. The balance tipped towards Jacob, and God, in a dream, called him back to Canaan, but his departure was complicated. So that's what we'll get into later. You don't realize how sad the story of Leah and Rachel is. And you don't really look into their character, and you just think, oh, it's a Bible story. And you don't think of these as actual people who actually had these feelings, who actually did these things, who had a husband who didn't love her for the very beginning, It's sad. But when you actually take the time and you read the story and you get to know these characters, these people, you appreciate what they have done for you and what their story can teach you. Okay, so tomorrow is 31, 1 through 27. And the next day is 28 through 55, and then I don't know what I'm going to talk about for the rest of the week. But I'm sure I'll ramble on about something. Okay, that was Genesis 30. I'll talk to you later.